Hey guys, Will here. So with the release of Assetto Corsa Competizione for console, no doubt there'll be a flood of previously casual racing gamers dipping their toes into the world of sim racing for the very first time. So as more experienced sim racers will tell you, the slope is very slippery and the rabbit hole goes extremely deep. So while it's possible to play sim racing games using a hand controller, for the best experience, of course, you're going to want to use a wheel and pedals. And you'll also need something solid, of course, to mount them to. So in today's video, I wanted to take you through the basics and give you my recommendations based on my experience with a wide variety of different hardware configurations. If you're after more detail than this video offers, I have a complete beginner's guide to sim racing video series linked above my head for you right now, as well as in the description of the video, which goes into a lot more detail on every aspect of sim racing, as well as explaining the different types of wheels and pedals that are available on the market today. But for this video, let's try and keep things simple and straight to the point. So as always, the aim here isn't to try and push you towards any particular product. I'm definitely not a salesman, but rather I want to try and arm you with the knowledge that you'll need to make your own informed decisions. But that said, if you would like to support our work here at Boosted Media, we do have some links in the video description for most of the products that we'll be talking about today. And if you choose to purchase using those links, a small commission does come our way, which doesn't cost you anything extra, but it's an awesome way that you guys can support Boosted Media should you wish to do so. But look, everybody's budget is going to be different. And unfortunately, as with any hobby, there's always an element of elitism within the sim racing community at times, particularly when it comes to console gaming, unfortunately. And this can trick a lot of people into thinking that you need to spend crazy amounts of money to be able to be competitive and have fun. So the first thing that I want you guys to understand today is that this is absolutely not the case. We've covered this in a lot more detail in a beginner's guide series as well, but basically what it boils down to is muscle memory. Once you've established muscle memory and your body can react to what the car's doing in the sim instinctively, it makes very little difference what hardware you're actually using. Now, there are some important exceptions to this, of course, most notably when it comes to pedals, and without a doubt, these are the single most important piece of hardware in your sim rigs. So the more realistic a set of pedals feel, as well as the more range of control available, the more you'll be able to modulate your inputs and make small little corrections, and this will ultimately lead to faster and more consistent lap times. This can seem a little bit strange to a lot of people at first because you kind of tend to think that the quality of the force feedback would be the most important thing, but as long as your brain has some sort of way of interpreting what's going on with the car that can help you to establish muscle memory, the actual realism of the force feedback that you feel makes very little difference in terms of lap times and consistency. In fact, many professional sim racers actually play with very basic setups and the force feedback turn pretty much all the way down to the bare minimum to speed up their reaction times. Now, when it comes to consoles, the vast majority of people will be playing using a TV or sitting on a couch. So for the purpose of this video, we'll be focusing more on the types of sim racing hardware which suit this style of gameplay rather than the high-end full cockpit setups that you've seen in a lot of my other videos. For the best possible experience, of course, a full cockpit setup is always going to be best. But by the time you reach that point, you're more than likely going to be racing on a PC anyway. So we'll only touch on that briefly here. Again, for more details, do check out our Sim Racing Beginner's Guide series linked in the description. So the single most important factor in determining what sim racing gear will best suit you will be the environment in which you're playing. There's no point in spending thousands and thousands of dollars on high-end wheelbases, super stiff load cell pedals if you're going to be sitting on a couch and putting the pedals on the floor. So before you do anything else, you need to do somewhat of an ergonomic assessment of your intended play space. Most importantly, you're going to want to make sure that you've got a solid way to mount your wheel and your pedals in a manner that won't have them moving around and sliding away from you. As soon as things start to move around significantly, consistency goes completely out the window. So this is vitally important. So for the majority of console players, you're probably going to be looking at some sort of a wheel stand. If you're playing on a solid floor without carpet or with very, very thin carpet, then generally wheel stands work pretty well for the more entry-level pedals and wheels that are on the market. But if you're playing on thicker carpet, then you're inevitably going to have quite a bit of movement going on without your weight attached to the frame to sort of anchor it. So in situations where this is likely to be an issue, I would recommend considering a foldable cockpit solution. The Playseat Challenge is the cheapest solution and is essentially a folding deck chair with wheels and a pedal platform attached. Now, it may not be the most rigid solution in the world, but it folds away nicely when not in use, which makes it a lot more partner and wife friendly. If you're gaming in a living room and you can't have sim racing gear everywhere, it really is a great solution. Next Level Racing also have their FGT Lite, which we recently reviewed, and that offers both Formula and G GT style seating positions as well. It's a little bit more rigid than the play seat challenges as well, and more suitable for stronger wheelbases and stiffer pedals, but it does take up quite a bit more space when folded away, and it's considerably more expensive as well. Now, importantly, in my opinion at least, no wheel stand or folding cockpit solution currently on the market is really suitable for a direct drive wheelbase, with the exception of the Next Level Racing wheel stand DD, and even that is not something that I would recommend to use with a direct drive wheelbase if you're going to be playing on carpet, as there'll still be too much movement to really take advantage of that expensive wheelbase. It does work, but you know, any movement that you feel throughout the wheelbase, any flex or anything like that is going to take away a little bit of the fidelity, and I think that's a really important point to just be aware of when you're making your purchasing decisions. So the important thing here is to match the mounting solution with the wheel and pedals that you're interested in. So on that subject, let's talk a little bit more about wheels and pedals. Now, unlike with PC sim racing, the range of wheels and pedals which offer native console support is somewhat limited, and we'll talk about recommendations for console compatible devices in just a moment. But first, I wanted to just mention that there are some workarounds available. One such solution is called the Drive Hub, and I'll link to more detail in the description for you guys. But this emulates a console compatible wheel, pedals, and shifter, and allows you to connect many non-compatible peripherals to your console. By all accounts, this device works pretty well, but just keep in mind that you don't get the same ability to tune your settings that you do on a PC. On their website, they do also have a list of compatible devices, so definitely check that out if you're looking at doing that. Now, another option that's also available is a little device called a GIMX or GIMX, which allows you to connect your PC compatible peripherals to a PC or laptop and then bridge the PC across to the console as an input device. So the console will detect your PC and the devices that are connected to it as a standard sort of console compatible input device, and off you go. Now, I haven't tested one of these personally, but I'm told that it works surprisingly well with no significant input lag. Of course, this would depend on the PC or laptop that you're using, and again, there's more details on their website in the description below as well. Now, of course, this is a little bit more cumbersome, and it kind of adds a lot of complexity to the setup, and at that point, again, you might sort of be thinking, well, if I've got to have a PC to make this work anyway, then maybe I'm better off just kind of gaming on a PC to begin with. But it is just another option that I wanted you guys to be aware of. But of course, the majority of you are going to be looking at wheels and pedals that you can just plug in with minimal stuffing around and just drive. So let's go through some of the options that I would recommend. Now, there are some really cheap options out there without any force feedback whatsoever, but honestly, I feel like they're not really a significant upgrade over a hand controller in terms of, you know, what they're going to give you in terms of speed and consistency. So let's start off with the more entry-level force feedback options. Now, without a doubt, the most popular wheel and pedal set on the market for the past decade has been Logitech's G series. Currently, the G29 for PC and PlayStation compatibility, and the G920 for PC and Xbox compatibility. Now, these use a gear-driven system and offer fantastic value for money, and despite their toy-like appearance and plastic construction, they've actually proven themselves to be extremely robust over the years. I personally used and abused a Logitech G27 for about 10 years before passing it on to a friend who I believe is actually still using it to this day. There's also a plethora of mods and upgrades available, such as aftermarket wheel adapters, load cell upgrades, and all sorts of things like that, which make them fantastic value. Now, the force feedback is plenty strong enough, in my opinion, to provide an immersive driving experience, but not so strong as to require a high-end cockpit, which makes them really ideal for those who are on a tighter budget or just starting out with sim racing. Now, Thrustmaster do also have the TMX for Xbox One and the T150 for PlayStation 4, as well as their Pro variants. However, these lack some of the functionality and features offered by their Logitech counterparts, which is why, in my opinion, Logitech's offerings are slightly better value. So stepping up into the next price bracket takes us out of gear-driven wheels and into belt-driven technology. Again, to learn more about the differences between the different types of technology used in these wheelbases, check out our beginner's guide linked in the description. This is where Fnatic also enters the ring, and Thrustmaster and Fnatic both have some really great options available in the belt-driven range. However, we do need to consider that we're also going to be looking at a more expensive and bulky wheel stand or basic cockpit to really take full advantage of the added strength and fidelity that we get with these wheelbases. So do just tread carefully here. Now, at the more entry-level side of the spectrum, as far as belt-driven wheelbases go, we have the Thrustmaster TX, which is Xbox One compatible, and the T300 RS, which is compatible with PlayStation 3 and 4. These again come bundled with Thrustmaster's more entry-level pedals, but there are upgraded models available, which include Thrustmaster's T3 PA pedals, as well as a nicer rim. These are a solid step up from the cog-driven wheels that we spoke about earlier, with significantly more strength and fidelity, as well as a smoother and less robotic, more lifelike feel overall. So is it worth paying almost double that of a cog-driven setup? Well, that's really up to you guys, but just don't expect it to make you a whole lot faster or more consistent. It's really just about the extra fidelity and the extra immersion and enjoyment factor that you get out of spending more at this point. Now, from here, we move up up into the Fanatec CSL Elite Series. Fanatec offers a wide variety of interchangeable wheels, bases, shifters, and of course pedals, which are for the most part cross-compatible. And we do have a detailed Fanatec buyer's guide, which I've linked above my head for you, as well as in the description, that takes you through the entire ecosystem in detail. The CSL Elite range once again offers a significant upgrade in strength and fidelity over Thrustmaster's offerings if you're willing to pay the extra. Remembering also that particularly if you go with a CSL Elite load cell brake, sitting on the couch with the pedals unsecured on the ground is definitely not going to be a good idea. So at this point, I'd be looking at a Playseat Challenge or an FGT Lite as a minimum to get the best value out of the wheel and pedals. You also do, of course, have the option of upgrading to the Fanatec Club Sport V3 pedals, which again are a significant upgrade over the CSL Elite pedals, particularly when they're paired with the pedal performance kit. But for those who are going to be looking at a wheel stand DD at an absolute minimum, or start looking at entry-level cockpit solutions to get your money's worth out of those pedals. Now, with regards to pedals, again, of course, we have a detailed guide linked in the description below, which will take you through the different types of pedals available, all of their mechanical differences, as well as their pros and cons. So be sure to check that out for more information there. So last up within the belt-driven range, we also have the Fanatec Club Sport Wheelbase 2.5, which is natively compatible with PC as well as Xbox One when paired with an Xbox compatible wheel, of course. Remembering, as we mentioned before, compatibility comes from the wheel, not the base when it comes to Xbox. So unfortunately, the CSW 2.5 is not natively supported by the PS4. However, I'm told it does work quite well with the Drive Hub, as we previously discussed. Now, the Club Sport Wheelbase 2.5 is without a doubt the best belt-driven wheelbase on the market, at least at this point in time. And for many people, this fulfills everything they could ever want in a wheelbase. Strength and fidelity are increased again, but the main difference is not only the more refined build quality and fit and finish of the product, but also the overall smoothness and realism of the feedback that it provides. You'll hear many people say that it's the same electronics as the CSL Elite and therefore exactly the same. This is simply not the case, and I have a detailed video comparing the two if you'd like to explore that in more detail as well. At this price point, we're really starting to get into the more serious end of things. So you're going to be wanting a wheel stand DD with a solid floor as a bare minimum, so no carpet for a CSW 2.5 to get your money's worth out of it and really feel that extra detail that's present with the wheelbase. On carpet, I'd argue that you're probably going to need a proper cockpit with a chair fixed to the wheel deck and pedals to really feel the benefit. Now, the CSW 2.5 is absolutely, without a doubt, a fantastic wheelbase, and it was actually my first significant upgrade from my G27. But to be honest with you guys, if you have limited space and budget, I'd probably go with better pedals and a better quality wheel stand or cockpit setup before stretching to this wheelbase. It just, you've really got to consider exactly where the money is best spent. And I think when you stretch this high up in the market with the wheelbase, there's other things you'd probably want to spend a bit more money on first. Lastly, we step up into the direct drive market. Now, unfortunately, console compatibility is limited within this market, with the only wheelbases offering native console compatibility being the Fanatec Racing Wheel F1 combo package for PlayStation 4 or the DD1 or DD2 for Xbox. Now, it's important to note that the F1 combo for PS4 comes bundled with what is essentially a DD1 wheelbase, but it also includes the chip for PS4 compatibility as well. So it's essential that you buy this combo and not a regular DD1 or DD2 if you intend to play on a PS4. Now, I'll be completely honest with you guys here. If you're spending this kind of money on a wheelbase and pedals, I really wouldn't be buying with console compatibility as the determining factor in your purchasing decision, unless, of course, moving to a gaming PC simply isn't an option for you. The direct drive market has progressed in leaps and bounds over the last couple of years, and unlike before, there's now a really wide range of options available, which, despite not being compatibility with consoles, are well worth your attention. Now, that's certainly not to say that Fanatec's offerings won't give you an awesome console gaming experience. That's not what I'm saying at all. These are, without a doubt, the best currently available on console. However, if you're going to be looking at investing this kind of money into sim racing, then there's other things that I would invest in first. A gaming PC will not only give you much wider range of compatible peripherals, but far more options in terms of driving sims to play them on, as well as triple screens, VR for added immersion, which in my opinion will all add more to the overall sim racing experience than an expensive wheelbase would. So yeah, unless you're limited to console for other reasons, then I'd probably look at upgrading other things before taking the jump to a direct drive wheelbase specifically for console. So if you do choose to go with a direct drive wheelbase for your console, a wheel stand DD would be the absolute bare minimum in terms of a mounting solution that I would recommend, assuming you're not going to be able to bolt it to a desk or something like that. And if you're playing on carpet, then you're definitely going to need a proper cockpit setup to get your money's worth out of a direct drive base. Otherwise, you know, the amount of movement and flex that you're going to be experiencing is just going to take all that fidelity out of the wheelbase that you just paid for, so it's just not worth it. Now, as far as cockpits go, there are a wide variety available, but my honest advice is look into aluminium profile cockpits, or as they're often called, 80/20 cockpits. These are some of the most modular and offer the most in terms of adjustability, and in my opinion, offer the best value for money. Profile can be purchased relatively cheaply if you're the DIY type, and there are plenty of bespoke aluminium profile cockpits available locally as well. So ask around, do a bit of research, ask in some of the local Facebook groups, and you're bound to find something. Now, in terms of off-the-shelf solutions for aluminium profile cockpits, SimLab and Track Racer are probably the most popular two brands. And the reason for that is they offer a wide range of off-the-shelf accessories, brackets, and mounting hardware to really sort of take a lot of the guesswork out of setting up your own rig. So I generally try to steer away from making specific product recommendations, but I know you guys are going to ask me, so I'll try to do this as best I possibly can. So for me at least, I believe for most people, the Logitech G29 for PlayStation and PC or the G920 for Xbox and PC really do offer the best overall bang for buck in terms of console racing. They're simple to use, they're easy to mount without the need for, you know, spending a fortune on a cockpit, and they're easy to pack away when not in use. And most importantly, they still give you everything you need to race competitively and have fun. If you're wanting to go a little bit more higher end, then for me, I find it hard to go past the Fanatec CSL Elite along with the CSL Elite load cell pedal upgrade. These hit a really great balance between price and performance without stretching to the point where I'd recommend looking at moving towards a gaming PC. But if you're also, of course, looking at moving to a gaming PC later on down the road, these are also compatible. So that's a good thing to note as well. You aren't going to necessarily need to upgrade your wheelbase and pedals later on. Anything beyond the CSL Elite, and you're starting to push into the territory where I would be spending money on other things before a wheelbase and pedals. You know, things like triple screens or maybe VR, things that you can only really do on a PC. So yeah, that's my opinion there. I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with me, and I do encourage you guys to discuss it in the comments, but that is my recommendation based on my own experience. So before we wrap things up, at the time of making this video, next generation console compatibility is still not confirmed for any of the hardware that we've discussed in this video. So just keep that in mind as well. I'll of course keep you updated in another video as well as in a pinned comment on this video once more information does come to light. Personally, I would be very surprised if backward compatibility wasn't offered in some way, shape or form. However, this may come in the form of a firmware upgrade, so don't just assume that anything you buy today will automatically work with next generation consoles on launch day. So I really hope that this video has helped you to better understand what's out there in terms of hardware for your console sim racing, and of course how to get the best value for money. Now, as I said at the start of the video, if you would like to help out supporting our work at Boosted Media, there are some links in the description below to where you can purchase some of the gear that we've discussed in today's video, and I really do appreciate your support there. But above all, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.